Shabbat Shalom, y'all. How is everyone? I'm good. Today's Good Friday. I found it very interesting. It went right along with the reading and the reading for the weekend, and also with the Libra Full Moon. So we'll get into our extended discussion on the cards in a moment, but I mean, I just have to like decompress from work for a second. It's been so crazy today. So I was rushing around for the last 2 days, like making our workshop and getting everything that I needed for my Seder meal, and then doing the Seder ritualing via the Kabbalah Center. Then waking up and realizing that I'd only done like half of the ritual. So then I finished the evening ritual like the second day morning, but then there was also like morning ritual and then midday ritual and then evening ritual the second day. And I didn't know that there was like a two day extravaganza. So I've just been like ritualing, and which is very like tedious. It's like constant like scanning and like singing and like dancing, and sometimes you're like jumping up and down, sometimes you gotta get down on the ground, and so it's like you've got to pay attention, and it's like hours long. So I'm just like feeling very high strung, and I was really into the post today because it was Good Friday, and I don't know, it was just like, it was coming through slowly, but it was like really in depth. And then I look up and I'm like, oh my God, I've got to get ready for work. I'm going to be late. And so I was so stressed because it's Good Friday, and I felt like of all days, it was a very powerful post. It was important to get up, and I was just like rushing to work. And then I got there and I was able to, of course, as always, my table, every freaking shift, it's like before we're even ready to open, people are like scratching at the doors. And I'm like, oh, they can't wait to get in and get into my table. And it's always my table. And I'm always still like trying to polish my glasses and everything. I'm like not even finished setting up. And they're always unnecessarily early for their reservation. So again, today, these people are like all up in my haunches before I've had time to even finish like polishing everything on the table. And so I'm like, oh my God. So I get them started, and then like running to the bathroom. I'm trying to like upload the post. And so it all got done, and I was running around like crazy from the moment we opened. Well, actually, no, that's not true. From the time I got to work and started our mise en place. Then we opened, then it's been crazy. And then even after we closed, like my table was the last to leave. And I was like the last one out, even though I was in a closer, just finishing all my side work and things. So that was fun. And my last like large table of the night, I had like 2 parties of 12. And so the second party of 12, they were really good. They're really great people. But then like, I don't know what was going on out in the world tonight, but like every single person that I had at every table were like this with their water. And I'm like, oh my God, I've got to go like a city block back to like the danger zone in the heat to fill up these water carafes. Meanwhile, they're calling hands to run food. So I'm like, oh my God. So every time I go back there, I'm just like trying to get as many as I can and run back. And I can barely keep up with it because the other servers around this section are like taking them and not filling them either. So basically like providing water for the whole German town. And I've filled this table's water probably 16 times. They weren't eating dessert. They were all done and ready to leave. And I had like run their check and everything. And I was trying to get this other table all finished out. They were the last 2 tables. And I heard somebody at the end of the table, which was like right behind me, next to me, be like, gosh, they haven't brought water in a while. And I'm just thinking, you motherfuckers. So I turned around and I go, oh yes, I'm sorry. I've been a bit busy trying to get everybody closed out, and it's just that water's like way over there, and I've got to run and get it, but I've been like over here in this area. But if y'all sit tight, I'll run over there and grab you guys water. Just be reasonable. And so I ran to like fill up the water carafes and fill their waters for the zillionth time, even though they should just be leaving and getting out of my life. And so I'm like filling up water carafes, and like this glass, when it wasn't even warm, but for some reason when the cold water hit it, it just exploded. And so I'm in such a hurry to like get everybody done and get them out that like I didn't notice that like the glass like sliced my arm. So I'm like bringing all these carafes into the dining room, and I'm like trying to fill these waters, and instead of just letting me go around to them, everybody's like passing the waters across the table, making it more chaotic and more annoying. And I'm just like, oh my God, please act like I haven't given you 60,000 gallons of water. I have literally dug a natural spring at the end of your table, and we've been hand pumping it directly into your mouths. Do not act this dramatic. And so then the caraffe's empty. So I go to set it on the lounge table server thing that we have for our shit to workspace, our workspace. And the man is like, no, don't leave. I still need water. Don't go anywhere. And I turned around and go, I'm not going anywhere. I haven't left. I'm just putting the empty one down. I'm not leaving. I was like, fucking, I'd had it. I'm just like, I was probably borderline a problem at that moment. And I'm just like, have some chill. Okay. So 6 minutes in, I'm like bleeding. And then I didn't even notice until I take the water carafes back to the server station to throw them into the dish pit and all that stuff. And I noticed that like I had been bleeding. My arm is like bleeding and it's bled all over the carafes, and like nobody said anything. And I'm like, how grotesque was that? That I'm just like, this guy's like, wait. And I'm like, please, for the love of God, like I'm over here gushing blood onto the water jug. And yeah, so that was Good Friday. I thought it would be kind of a tense night because I've been like doing the Lenten fast for the last 40 days. And you know, it's not so much like the craving for the specific thing that you give up, or at least not for me anymore. Like I'm kind of used to just giving up something like that, and I can just accept that it's temporary and it won't bother me so much. For me, it's my sweet tooth. I love sweets. I'm constantly tempted by them at work. There's always candy and desserts and stuff, so it's constantly in my face. But I think that what it does is that as long as you're abstaining from the thing, then you are telling Spirit that you're participating in the wilderness season with Jesus. And so it's a symbolic demonstration of solidarity that, yes, okay, I'm going to enter into this 40 days. Take me through my wilderness, right? Show me the things where my weaknesses are. Tempt me with my anger, with my lust, with my craving, with my gluttony, with my laziness. Like, tempt me with it all and show me, so that I can perfect the vessel, so that I can know come Passover what I am dying to, what I'm leaving behind in Egypt. And so tying into our reading today, when Jesus went out into the desert, into the wilderness, he understood that not only was he preparing himself for the ritual of Passover, to celebrate that Seder meal, and as a mystic, Hebrew, Kabbalist, when there's high holy holidays that come up, it's not like it's just that day and you go in and you think about it and you're like, oh, okay. There's like weeks of preparation, of soul searching, of planning. Okay, what is it? Searching the self, searching the ego. There's a tradition, I missed I can't remember what the exact word is, but there was like an Easter egg hunt sort of thing with the lights off in the temple at the Kabbalah Center, and they had all the kids and all the adults going around looking for these things that they'd hid in the dark, and the things that they were finding were the negativity. It was our own negativity that we search for that's hidden in dark little corners, and we want to clear all that out, and we want to leave it behind us. So Jesus was out in the wilderness, and he was fasting for 40 days. And he was putting himself through this sort of discomfort so that he could break himself to get into a state of almost like delirium, of craziness, of not, like in that trance-like state, so that he had an active desire and he had starved the vessel of the self. Jesus also knew that he was doing more than preparing himself for the Eucharist of Passover. And I believe that the Passover supper maybe have been on, well, yes, it was on Shabbat because it was on Friday. It was on Good Friday. Or no, it would not have been on Good Friday. It was a Thursday before. So sorry about that. But like, so during the Seder meal and during the Exodus from Egypt, the night of the 10th and final plague, I think I was saying the other days that there was 5 plagues of Egypt. I don't know why I was thinking that. I kept saying that, but it was 10. And so the 10th plague was the death angel was going to come over the land and take the firstborn child of every household, unless that household had the blood of a lamb that had been sacrificed and painted over the doorway, which I took the blood of my Passover lamb and I painted it over my doorway with rosemary, which I probably should wipe it off soon. So they painted over the door, and so the animal sacrifice, that sacrificial lamb, they would have chosen to make an animal sacrifice. You choose the most perfect. You don't choose the scrawny runt that you're going to get rid of. The point to make the sacrifice more powerful is that you are breaking open a vessel and releasing the light within it. Well, the more perfect the vessel, meaning the better the calf, the better the lamb or whatever, the more light it will reveal once that vessel is broken open and that energy is released. And then that energy is released in the intention to redirect it towards the miracle. So as a tradition to symbolize that sacrifice that was painted over the door, every Seder meal has a lamb shank, a bone on the plate. And so Jesus in the desert was purposefully perfecting his vessel, knowing that he was going to be the sacrifice for that Seder. I don't know how specifically he knew the timing of what was coming, but Jesus knew exactly what he was doing. On a political level, as an activist in this movement that he was instigating, he knew that he was rising up against an empire, that he was becoming an enemy of the state, and that things were not going to go well for him. Most of the disciples thought that this was all going towards this big plan to maybe take over the government and Jesus would be like the king on earth. And they did not see the end coming like Jesus did. He knew that there was no way that this was going to end well for him. And he also knew that that was the point. That on a human level, as a martyr, he would make a deeper impact and the message would go further and deeper and would be longer lasting if he stuck to his guns, if he never backed down, if he kept pushing, knowing he was going to be tried as an enemy of the state and more than likely executed. He just kept on, and he did not incite a rebellion or any kind of violence like he could have. He had enough people following him People were fervent, they were crazy, and this is why the empire was so threatened by Jesus, because he was actually causing enough of a problem, enough of a stir in enough people that it could lead to an uprising. And so it was becoming a very big problem for them. And so he did not incite violence. He did not incite more separation. He did not pit people against one another. But when the time came, he went willfully, peacefully, and non-violently. And on a metaphysical level, Jesus knew that as the Christed consciousness, what that meant on the tree of life, it's the sacrificial point of all of the energies, and it's the redeemer of all of the energies. And so where everything is broken apart, and through temperance is integrated and made whole and unified again. So the symbolism that goes into the governing dimension that Christ rules in, Tiferet, in the Tree of Life, it's actually over the heart chakra. The heart is like a bridge between the physical and the intrinsic. And so the heart is an information processor. And there's like this eye in the heart. It's, the Greek word is called the nu, and it's the eye of the heart. It's the thing that we can envision with and see with. So it's the thing that we connect to our higher guidance through the Holy Spirit, through the Christ, through our higher self. This is the bridge of the communication. And so Jesus knew on a metaphysical level that he had to come here and be a perfected vessel at the level of Christ consciousness and die, not because he wanted to, but because for the sake of the souls of all mankind. Jesus brought a frequency to earth with his level of consciousness and compassion and unconditional love that hadn't existed here yet. It's like he had to come here and like hit a tuning fork that was at a frequency that hadn't been known in human consciousness. And so it was strong enough and powerful enough and resonant enough with the light of source, sustaining, eternal, unconditional, right? That it made it a possibility for us to reach and to connect with a frequency that had never been on earth before. Breaking that frequency open spread it out everywhere and made it available to everyone. And whosoever believeth in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. That's understanding the concepts of the fact that like what we see in the physical realm is only 1%, but what is real, what is really creating reality is in the intrinsic realm, which is like 99%. So when we take off this flesh suit, like our spirit, our soul are eternal. That's the real us. And it's just one ending is just the beginning of the next. And so in that way, death is an illusion. But as we transcend this even need for the illusion of death, because it's like, what would it even do? That's why Jesus was able to, he rose in consciousness before he died and was resurrected. There's a Secret Teachings of Jesus video from like the last couple of weeks. You should go and watch it. It's Christ rose before he died, I think is what it's called. So Jesus knew that he would have to be the sacrificial lamb that would open the gateway for our souls to transcend beyond the level that we had been previously, which was the level of Yesod. The level of the sacral chakra. the level of the astral realm of working with like angels and celestials and dreams and prophecy and intuition and all of that. But it's still not quite up to the Christ level. Most of the prophets before Christ had only come up to that level of Yesod, and the patriarchs. So for the week, I think that was mostly, no, there was more. Okay, so then in that Passover, that final Seder, when Jesus was like, this is the bread, I break this bread, this is my body, and I give it to you. He broke the bread knowing that he was going to be taken away and broken. And this is not something that they knew yet, because the Romans came to get him after the Last Supper. So the disciples may not have even totally knew exactly what he was saying, but I think that they were starting to figure it out. So Jesus is like, they're having the last Eucharist. And even in Passover, the thing with the matzah is that you don't eat bread during Passover. You have to starve the body of the ego. And the ego is the yeast that rises in the bread. And so the thing about the reason why they had to eat matzah was because they weren't allowed to give their ego time to rise. When God told them what to do, when he said, get out of Egypt, you are to be liberated, you are to emancipate yourself from this, you are having your exodus, just like us in life. When we get divine guidance to do something, it's like we hear it, and then the ego creeps in because we hesitate. And then we overthink it, and then we get anxious, and then we, second guess ourselves, and then we, judge and we justify and all of this stuff. And the ego had time to rise. You have to act fast. You can't be reactive. It's not when you're reacting in an affect state of consciousness to the conditions around you. You're not reacting emotionally, but when you get guidance and you know that you're supposed to do something, take action before the ego scares you. Because there's a huge blessing waiting for you, but it's on the other side of the fear. So breaking the matzah, we break the matzah to break the ego, to break the flesh, to break the desire to receive for oneself alone, and instead receive for the sake of sharing. Jesus didn't go out and do this ministry because it glorified him. He was tempted by the devil in the desert. You could have power. You could have everything. Like, Jesus was not trying to gain power. He wasn't trying to gain a leadership position. He was trying to help people. He was trying to liberate people at the cost of his own life, his own freedom. And so he perfected the vessel not to receive for the self, but to receive for the sake of sharing. There's an archetypal character called the reluctant Messiah. And if someone is only a real Messiah is reluctant because they're not trying to grab the crown, because they know that heavy sits the crown. A Messiah that knows what is required is very humbled and does not take that task lightly, and it's not about the glorification of themselves. And so, Jesus wasn't power grabbing. He was giving himself in the most humble way possible as a servant of his divine purpose, answering to his Father. You know, when Jesus was very young as an adolescent, he wasn't home when he was supposed to be, and his mother got onto him, and his father, they were like, where have you been? We've been so worried. And he's like, don't you worry about me. I'm doing my Father's work. I've been at the priesthood. I've been at the temple. Like, like, get out of my way. He answered to the Father. He had a purpose to serve. And so he, just like anybody else, was tempted. You know, in the Garden of Gethsemane, he was in deep prayer and just like dealing with what he was facing the next day. He asked his friends, please, can you like keep watch? Like, I have to pray all night long. And they all fell asleep. Like, how frustrating would that be? Like, you give everything to these people and half of them still don't know what you're talking about. And on the most important, like, night, they just fell asleep. And that's what we do too. When it counts the most, every time when we're supposed to be watching out for the Christ, keeping watch, maintaining our consciousness, we slip and we fall asleep. And we have to wake up over and over and over again. And it's painful awakening. So today's cards, we pulled Truth. We pulled Hope. And we pulled Transition. And then underneath Truth, we pulled Empress. Underneath Hope, we pulled Six of Pentacles. And then underneath Transition, we pulled Five of Swords. And I'm going to read this card out of this particular book because it was specifically different than the usual Five of Swords in other books. So I found it interesting that Truth came out with Empress because this card is reminiscent of the Judgment card in the Major Arcana of the Tarot, which is associated with Libra. The Empress is associated with Venus, which is the ruler of Libra. So I thought that was very interesting. And I'm just feeling that, so the Empress is like pregnant with potential. She's enjoying a beautiful harvest. She's surrounded by like life just coming into bloom. The Empress is someone who has successfully balanced the masculine and feminine energies and is equally good at like catching her intuition and putting it into motion and like putting inspiration into motion. Like the Empress is an amazing manifester. She's also very nurturing. And she's like the queenliest queen of the deck. She's like the pair with the Emperor who's like, I mean, it's not that they have one kingdom or queendom. They have an empire, right? So a lot can happen right now and a lot of blessings have potential to come in. A lot of love, a lot of happiness, a lot of even like financial gain or opportunity within your career or within your purpose. Within the way that you make money and security, within the way you make bread, right? But the Truth card has come up, and in this particular deck, it does talk about the truth being a double-edged sword. And there's a difference between our individual experience, which informs our personal truth of the world, and there's a difference between that truth, the divine truth, and then like kind of the collective like mundane truth of what we're accepting, right? But I feel like in this situation it's really like pointing out that like I feel like this woman is even like at odds with herself in this picture. And so I feel like with the theme of this weekend, particularly today, Good Friday, we are being crucified along with Christ, right? And so we are laying our ego on the cross, which means who we identify with as the self, this small self. We are really unlimited, beings of unconditional love and compassion and potential and amazing abilities for miracles and manifestation. But we don't live in that truth, like not most of the time. We haven't awakened and unlocked that yet. What gets in the way is our own personal small self truth, the ego. And so sometimes we shoot ourselves in the foot, or we hold ourselves back because we're too caught up in our own truth, and we're not able to see other people's, or we're not able to see that there's two sides to every story. And so with the Five of Swords coming up in the same reading with this truth, it's like, truth at what cost? Right? Like there's this saying that, I've heard a lot, and it's so true. It's like, would you rather be right or happy? I mean, you can't do that all the time, because then you'd just be like a doormat and a codependent, like getting walked all over, like, yeah, whatever you say. And like, you'd never have a backbone to stand up for yourself. But I mean, you have to learn what hills you die on. And when are you holding yourself back because you're just too attached to your truth? Or when are you causing separation rather than unity because you're too attached to your truth? And it's butting up against truth on truth. And it's like, well, what's the real truth? What's divine truth here? Because chances are, if my human truth is butting up against your human truth, we're probably both a little right and a little wrong. And so it's about trying to, find the middle ground, or try to accept and understand one another more and have compassion. This is a good time. This is a great season for forgiveness, compassion, redemption, putting things behind us. Because going forward, right now we have just passed like our Aries new moon. We're in Aries season. We've got this Libra new moon. And so within Aries season, and we're starting to get a deeper sense of this new self that we are, and this different level of consciousness, and this up-leveled, more healed state. And so everything that we're doing now, like hopefully we were able to identify everything that we wanted to leave in Egypt. Whatever we still have with us, we're going to leave it on the cross, because what we want is to be dead to ash by tomorrow, so that come Sunday, we can resurrect as a completely new human being, so that no matter what we're presented with, we can come at it like a newborn, as if we were someone who had amnesia and didn't remember anything that came before. And we have a clean slate, wiped clear of past programming and past wounds and subconscious beliefs and hidden conflicting desires, right? We're going to wipe that all clear. And so as we move forward, as we have our comings and goings and our interactions with the people in our lives, within our relationships, within our partnerships, within our friendships, and our co-workers and acquaintances, we get to show up differently than we ever have. If you take it slow and you decide with your own free will and your consciousness, hey, I don't want to keep repeating the same patterns from the past. So that means that I now can start doing things differently in order to have a different experience, but I have to be different. I have to show up differently. And so now it's like, now that we're being reborn and like resurrected, we are going to discover that it's like we're starting over. And when we start coming up against life's experiences, we have to stay present. All right, I'm a new soul moving forward in a new timeline and a new story. So who am I showing up as now? Stay hopeful. make choices and decisions based on hope. Even more than that, certainty. Certainty in the light of the Creator goes even beyond hope, right? Hope is still a little bit of wishful thinking, but when you're certain in the light, there's no doubt or question that you will be taken care of, and that everything will work out the way it's supposed to, and that you'll be led and guided. But yeah, so stay in a hopeful state of consciousness. Don't let yourself go into negativity or fear, lack, and doubt. And then 6 of Pentacles is under that. And so I feel like a lot of blessing can come in and things can really even out in our life. But we have to pay attention, like Libra is teaching us about equality in the scales. We have to make sure that there's an equal give and take coming from the things that we're investing our time and energy and resources in, including like people, projects, work, things like that, hobbies, whatever, what have you. What you're giving to things, you want equal value in return in that fulfillment, or however it comes back. Same with relationships. You want to give and take equally. If you're the over-giver all the time, then it's, time to just speak up for yourself, or set some boundaries, or just take your place at the table. Speak up, ask for what you want. You don't have to make it a big deal, just start doing it. But yeah, so equal give and take. I will also say that think about your intentions. What do you want from life? Do you want more authenticity? Do you want deeper connections with people? Do you want things to be more fulfilling and more satisfying? Well, then that means that you have to also show up and be more authentic, more open, more willing to connect and to take a risk, and to accept people and accept that you're gonna have good days and bad days with them. I know a lot of us at work love each other so much, but we've been a little on edge recently. But it doesn't mean that we're all gonna hate each other's guts now. It just means we're gonna get past it, we're gonna get better. But give a little bit, right? Show a little gesture of kindness. But I do feel really great blessings can come in, but it kind of has to, we've got to get over the hump of something that's holding us back. And in our full moon reading, which you should go and watch the workshop, but the card came up that, I think a couple of versions of this card came up in different decks, but it was don't let pride get in your way. Don't let pride hold you back. So yeah, and I think it's really tying into the truth card. Don't be hardened in your truth. Be malleable. And then we're in a transition. So we've just come out of the ending of not only the energetic year of 2022, but pretty much life up until this point. All the collective of the whole world, anyone who's awakened enough to take the opportunity can jump timelines and start in this new way forward. Life can be very different. You can transform and change very rapidly, exponentially even. And we have been, and we've been working on this a lot. And if you've just recently had your first or second wave of awakening, it can be extremely deeply jarring anyway. It prompts the dark night of your soul. But I feel if you're only kind of starting this journey now, I feel it's even more intense and accelerated into a quick and fast time window, which is going to make it feel even more intense. I know that when I began the awakening process and started the dark night of the soul, which I feel just comes in cycles. This was back in 2012, I think, 2011, like leading to 2012. It felt like after that, it felt like everything was really intense, but there was so much growth, like so fast that like from month to month, I was like a different person. From year to year, it was like I was a different person. So it was like crazy. So we're in a transitional moment. So just understand that you're not insane. You're not losing it. It's just that like, it's like this for a lot of people right now, but we're coming through it. And we are coming out of this ending, and we are like starting into this new beginning. It's just that it's not like immediately things look different. It just takes a minute for the new story to begin, right? We're still in the introduction of what's going on. We're in opening credits territory. So be patient. New beginnings are coming. It's just that they're not quite fleshed out yet. They're happening. It's like the seeds are germinating under the soil, and they're about to start breaking through and sprouting. And then we have 5 of Swords, which ties into this Truth card. 5 of Swords in the traditional sense usually talks about being mindful not to win at all costs. Like, the Swords is kind of a suit that can have conflict in it. And so I think that this 5 of Swords can talk about inner conflicting desires, having conflicting agendas with the people around you, or just putting your thoughts and truth and like your cerebral realm ahead of your heart, or ahead of the feelings of yourself and others. And so it's kind of, you get into this mindset where like, it's like my way or the highway, or like, I want to win at all costs. Like no matter what, who suffers along the way. So be careful. Like what are you really winning if you feel like you've come out on top, or if you feel like you've like done something just right, or gotten your way, or like, stuck the landing just perfect. Maybe it's like, maybe even if it's unintentional on your end, you could be coming off in a way that someone else is interpreting that it's like, maybe like you're insensitive, and even though you don't realize that they're thinking that. So I'm going to read this card, and that will make more sense to you. And then we'll be done. Okay, I'm turned 1 page away from it, almost right to it. Okay, so 5 of Swords. On this card, we see a couple after a struggle. The man has lost the fight and turned himself away into the shadows. He is mentally wounded, and his hurt feelings have been mended with 5 scarlet stitches. The woman won the fight and stands in the spotlight. She's wearing a red dress, which symbolizes the drama and emotional conflict the fight was about. In one hand, she holds a fragment of her opponent's wounds. In the other hand, she holds a large flower, symbolizing her triumph. The flower hides half of her face, indicating that she has not played fair and wanted to win at all cost, no matter how much pain she caused. So I'm just going to read both the upright and reverse meaning of this card. The upright meaning is conflict, defeat, self-interest, winning dishonorably, manipulation, or unfair advantage. And then the reverse meaning can be acting with integrity, reconciliation, harmony, and compromise. And so I wanted to read both versions because I feel like maybe there has been misunderstanding, possibly, and maybe now is a good time to just have integrity, to be authentic instead of like, you know, aloof or whatever, and have an open heart for reconciliation and choose to move towards harmony and unity. And that might help with whatever relationship issues that you might have at the moment, because this Libra full moon is highlighting partnerships and relationships and putting a big spotlight on them. And so, yeah, there's probably going to be positive and, you know, not so easy things come up. So act with integrity, have compassion. If someone's hurt you, like, you're not wrong for having been hurt, but try to move towards acceptance and forgiveness and compassion. If nothing else, for the spirit of Eucharist in the season of sacrifice and death and rebirth and redemption. In the name of Jesus, y'all, forgive each other. All right, well, that is it for tonight. I will see y'all tomorrow night for our secret sermons after midnight. It's we do our secret teachings of Jesus out of the Gnostic Gospels. And so tonight we've had kind of our Good Friday sermon. I'm sure that tomorrow we'll find something very poignant, because tomorrow will be the day that Jesus is in the underworld fighting death. All right, you guys, I will see y'all tomorrow. Ciao.